Brought to you by the Rugby Outlet Mall, equipping you for freedom and connection through rugby. Find out more at rugbyoutletmall.com.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of Grow Rugby. My name is GiftTime M.A.D.E, and I'm actually hitting you guys up because I'm in Brazil right now, and I'm not actually able to do this. This is actually a pre-recording, but I wanted to make sure that I had something ready for you guys because we have a really great guest that was on here, and it was one that you guys needed to hear. We have actually Kimani Davis, from co-founder of R.O.O.T.S, but also best known for his organization M.A.D.E, My Actions Defy Expectations. My Actions Defy Expectations, a community and mental wealth group that uses fitness and connection to be able to help you get to know your better self and to be able to connect with your community. And this guy, whenever you talk about a history that allows for an understanding of what community is, Kimani is probably best known. You probably even know him better if you're up in the Northeast area, but for those who aren't, definitely a guy you want to get to talk to or get to know. It's never a dull conversation. You guys are going to hear it in this interview as well. I don't want to hold you guys up for too long, but of course, please go ahead, check out the Rugby Outlet Mall. We got some great new stuff inside there now, some new merch there that we'd love for you to pick up. Opening up our gear, GTRN 13. You're going to start seeing it a little bit more and more around. But for those who are listening, you guys can get 20% off if you guys use our code GREAU, GREAUX Rugby, 2 words. And you guys can get 20% off all the gear under GiftTime Rugby Network or HBC Rugby Classic. We consider that the Rugby Outlet Mall exclusive gear. So use GROW Rugby, GREAUX Rugby, for 20% off all our merchandise that's there. And we're going to continue filling that, man. I'm telling you, you guys are going to be excited whenever you see what comes out in the next few months. Also, on top of that, please check out the movie Singapore to Tokyo any way you can. You guys can find it at redearthfilms.vhx.tv. It is a great documentary, 7-part series, 20 minutes per episode. So you're talking about 140 minutes. That's just 2 hours and 10 minutes of watch. And I'm telling you, you're going to be grabbed. We keep getting great reviews about it. It's only $17, and you guys keep it forever. You guys can download it, do what you will, but it's yours, and we want to make sure that you are able to just enjoy it and pass it on. I really suggest that you guys take a look at it. Also, please, if you guys can, leave a review on Apple iTunes and let us know what you think. It allows us to be able to have an idea of what it is that you are liking or disliking about what we have. Also allows us to be able to do a little bit more when it comes to advertising and being able to, keep the lights on overall, making sure that everything's good. But even more allows me to be able to continue to get the right guest to be able to create these impressions of opportunity that's there, and understanding the people that go along with it and that mindset. So you guys are constantly learning. I'm constantly learning. We all learn together. And lastly, of course, you guys can check out more of the episodes on video. We post some on every Friday from the Friday of the interview. So every Friday, go check out youtube.com/GiftTime Rugby Network, GIFTTIME Rugby Network. And you guys can see that and more. We got so much stuff in the backload. We got so much stuff about to come out. I'm excited. 2020 has been a very interesting year of stuff happening. But I'm about to try and go get some more of this rugby life here in Brazil and kind of see what we have to offer more worldwide, because I want you guys to take the time to know that you should be able to travel with this sport. It's not as expensive as you think, and it's not as dangerous as you probably are being led to believe in a lot of situations. A lot of times not even really dangerous at all, but danger is obviously in the eye of the beholder. But it really isn't as bad. So you guys will be hearing about it. But in the meantime, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. This is one of my favorites. Kimani, just amazing. Check it out. Kimani Davis, My Actions Defy Expectations, R.O.O.T.S Rugby. Check it out. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of Grow Rugby. My name is GiftTime and I got another very V, very I, and you guys don't even realize how much of a P this guy is. This dude has been in the back scenes doing the work, mentoring so many young rugby players, so many young people in general. One of the co-founders of R.O.O.T.S Rugby, the man, the myth, the legend, Kimani Davis. Kimani, man, thanks for coming through.
Hey, man, I'm happy to be here. I've heard about the show for a while, checked out a couple of podcasts. I think you're doing a lot of positive things, not doing the right thing, in terms of what is needed right now, especially for rugby and especially for our people and communities as a whole. So I'm happy to be here. Dude,
it's a legit pleasure. And I really appreciate that, by the way. It's interesting because one of the first times that I actually heard about you was because of a mutual friend of ours, Nick Hunter, who was formerly the coach for Simon Gratz previously. But even within that, I'd heard about you because of R.O.O.T.S, because of Kyle and Tiana. It had been mentioned, but it was like, who is this guy? And then you hear about it with Nick, and it was like, wait, who is this guy that's been doing this stuff behind? Is this the workout guy? Is who is the secret the secret person? So I think whenever we ended up doing obviously when we did the panel with R.O.O.T.S and got to finally meet you and introduce, it was like, oh, this all makes sense now. This all makes the most sense. And I have to say, I have definitely been appreciative of getting to know who you are and getting, of course, especially to be able to meet you as a person and not just the figure that has been that's been around, that coming out of the Philly and New York area, kind of bouncing off between these two. Man. Yeah.
First, once again, thank you for having me. As you mentioned, Kyle and T, I'm going to put them on the spot. I want to wish them a happy anniversary today.
Nice. Happy 4 years, you guys.
Yeah, I just want to, authentic individuals, and I'm happy that they found and they're with each other. Very positive presence, very positive family. Just to be able to, for them to be younger than I am, but the mutual respect and admiration and the way we look to each other for guidance, at times is just is very appreciative, and I'm looking forward to see, what's ahead.
Oh man, I think the future is definitely, in my opinion, is bright, but it has to get work there. I think that's the one part that we always know, and it's interesting, especially in this time period where it feels like people say history is being made, but I think it's just history is being made aware of. And so you get to now actually see the detailed work that has to get done to see these things occurring, as opposed to it kind of being a flyover night work, and somebody in the background's getting it done, but we're just getting the affects of it,
It's just one of those things where we look at it from the point of view is, not to sound too cliche, but, one of the things I love saying to people, if I'm asked or if someone asks me, what has rugby shown or taught me, in playing, my first match was in 1995, and all the games, all the matches, all the tournaments, and if I had to pick one thing, what rugby has taught me, that rugby, in comparison to life, rugby is such a game of momentum, that you're going to come out strong, but at some point, the other team is going to push back, but it's how, can you withstand it and close out a game? And, growing up in New York City, and they're heads older than me. You know, police brutality, violence, racism is nothing new. This is another shift in the momentum. And I think we have the opportunity right now to be able to close out the game. You know, and that's just how I feel, and that's real. I think
that's real. And I think, again, it's one of those things that it is recognized. You know, because like I said, a lot of times people aren't seeing or aren't feeling that momentum. It is heard after the fact, or it is talked about before, but that action in between is never really felt constantly. And I think, especially even this last decade, I think we've had this like up and down balance, because a lot of people want to go like, from what I always say is, not just say, but is a lot of people go like, we were lax during Obama years, and then it all came to head during Trump years, and we're just getting it. Whereas, in my opinion, it's no, everything had been going on through all these years. It's only the awareness, and not even a grander awareness. It's only it's specific variations of being able to express in a public forum how these things are occurring.
Yeah, and it's also the subconscious, where even now during this health crisis, we still can't get it together. So that's why it's exploding. Like even now, through all of this, it's. Am I surprised? No, but knees on necks, getting shot in the living room, and that's what we know of. What people get. We find something new within the last year, within the last 6 months. It's another 5 or 6 cases every week of something else that's being brought out. So, what you said, it's always been there. Especially being a New York City resident, you've witnessed it all the time. I mean, I witnessed it myself, going to practice, going to work, going to school. I'm a director of school culture, going to school in a tie with a bag, and cops are asking me, they have the random stops at the train stations in New York. Oh, we need to check your bag. And we need, it's all the other people that went through. Clearly, you want to check my bag.
Right.
Something, the microaggressions to the to the crisis. It's never not been here.
No, and look, for what it's worth, New York PD has always been notorious for this. So even whenever it comes into that, if someone goes, man, I can't believe it's happening, it's like, wait, have you not listened to pop culture over the last 50 years? At least since the 70s at minimum? Like,
yeah, it's I was blessed to grow up in that era. And hip hop was at its toddler stage. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Harlem when the projects were the safe haven. Mm-hmm. I shared this with you before. All the drugs happened around the projects. If I always tell people I have conversations with, go and look at on YouTube, look at clips of this slides of Harlem in the 80s and 70s and 80s, and just look at what it looked like. You wouldn't believe it. It wasn't that long ago, but you see the abandoned buildings, you see burnt cars in the street. Like, this was real, and this was not that long ago. This was in my lifetime. This was when I was going to school, literally strapping my backpack and running home every day to get from my school to the projects.
Right.
And I can remember vividly, I tell people, 1986, it was like that summer coming back from school and seeing crack vials in the schoolyard, littered the schoolyard. And we thought they were like the little perfume sample bottles.
Yeah.
And then
like, am I supposed to put this? Ooh, no.
No. Like, we were looking at it like, wow. And I'll never forget, it was yellow caps. We were like it was like all these perfume bottles. Like, everybody.
No, it's. Look, can I just imagine? Just as a kid, you're just like, what's happening? Why are people just trying to get so
right? Right, and it literally, like, I never, I don't doubt, if it ever came out that the whole crack epidemic was a conspiracy, I'd be like, yeah, I'm not surprised, because it was like it happened overnight. Like, right. I was an elementary school kid. It literally happened overnight, like in the span of a summer. But then all of a sudden, it was like boom.
And that's, again, and it look, all these things kind of resonate back to where we are today. But before we kind of further delve into that, I kind of want to go into a little bit more on what you're just talking about, coming from that era into this, and really how it led you into rugby initially. So, like, you grew up, you were born in Harlem?
Born in Harlem, born and raised, Grant Projects in Harlem.
Nice. And so, being up in Harlem, being in Harlem in the 70s, 80s, 90s, all right?
Yeah, I was born, well, you could say I was born in the 70s, but 80s, 90s is, you know.
From your era, okay.
Yeah.
Strong Gen Xer. But, you know, so you're talking about this era where you have the establishment of all this cultural branding probably came at its highest. You know, we're talking about the height of the beginning of hip hop in its form. It is the beginning. It is the still resonance of Harlem as being the sole center of Black America. I'm not even going to give it to Atlanta at this point yet. I would say Harlem is the creative cultural epicenter of Black America at this point. Still, you know. So for you, coming into this era, like what was the process like, again, coming from being in Harlem, being in this Renaissance kind of period, and then entering into rugby, a culture that obviously is not necessarily, similar to what was?
I mean, I think my perspective is definitely unique and fortunate. I mean, when I say I grew up in Grant Projects is literally a 10-minute walk away from the Apollo Theater. Like, I grew up from the center, 125th, like right there. Grew up on LaSalle Street, which is the equivalent to 124th. So, the Saturdays, just remembering how something was always happening. And so it was just the transition to that was I went to a small liberal arts school in upstate New York. And I was always an athlete growing up. That probably stopped me from being bullied. Was the fact that I was.
Sometimes it's take advantage of what you have.
It was from the fact that it was from a low income family. My mom worked 2 jobs. My brothers are 8 and 10 years older than me. So when I wore hand-me-downs, they were hand-me-down from 8 and 10 years. So there was a little out of fashion when I got them. But
so consistent. You never had to buy new clothing, even if
I had to buy, and when I went to college, I initially went to Bard College to play basketball. I was lucky enough to help start the rugby team. So that transition, I didn't realize, I think in that regard, I was a little protected and was able to build a little bond with the people there, my friends, people who I'm still close friends with now, because we weren't, even though most of them came from positions of privilege, by the time the second year, there were about 6 brothers on the team. So that was just something to have that kind of comfort.
Right.
We had Asian players, we had Latinx. It was so
diverse
it was diverse. So it was like, it wasn't until we played against I'm gonna say the team. It wasn't until we played against Hofstra University that they came to our pitch, and we used to get we were fortunate. It took off. We used to get about 200 fans in a game. 200.
Good Lord, that's more than fortunate. To this day, that's still surpassing, especially for college grassroots.
Because it was a phenomenon. You know what I'm saying? At a liberal arts school, it was like, wow. And it was made up of a lot of athletes that played other sports. We had soccer players. We had, we didn't have major sports. Like, we had basketball, we had soccer, we had tennis, we had volleyball. We didn't have the football. We didn't have hockey. We didn't have baseball. But we had a lot of players that played that at their other schools. And so, in the athletes, we all hung out together. We used to always, we used to be able to sit at each other's tables. So it wasn't even like the soccer players sat with the soccer players or and then We also had the part, we used to call it we didn't used to call it Little Africa. We had the part where that was our section because we didn't have that many players, not that many people of color at our school. But we gravitated towards each other. We supported each other.
Right.
But at the same time, a lot of us were athletes, and it was welcoming in that. In a lot of regards, we were able to filter out. And so when we played against Hofstra, and one of them, the game is about to start, and one of them actually said, and I'm going to use the word, and we found out because Jessica, girl, 6'2", white girl, one of our best friends, we biggest supporter, we just see her haul off and start swinging on one of their players.
Oh, wow.
Because one of them actually said, how many niggas do they have on this team?
Wow. Wait, what year was this?
This was in 95, 96.
Wow.
And for us, even then, that was just because that never, it wasn't until, that was our first full season.
Right.
And it wasn't that was the wake-up call where, that wasn't even the first incident. I remember the first time I saw someone do, it was the previous year when there was only two of us on the team at the time. And the first time we saw a team do a Zulu. And I was like, that's not going to work for me.
So wait. So when it came to that, and it's interesting, especially whenever you're starting a team like that. One, what was the motivation for you to start the rugby team in the first place? Because we're just talking about multiple cultural elements that are just occurring right now. So for you, what was that? What even led to you being able to get to that point?
I mean, it was a group of us. A lot of those guys never played a particular sport before.
Right.
They never played rugby, but they've played sports. We had second all-state catchers and quarterbacks and, kid was second team All-American wrestler. And this guy Seth, we were just let's form some kind of club, where we could, get funding and hang out. It was just one of these things. And, and we was we could even get the equipment. And I think Seth kind of tricked us.
Yeah.
And he said, what about rugby? And we were like, I don't know what that is, that whatever. But me, I always played sports.
Right.
And we just tried it. I mean, I think what the motivation for me was, he sat down with me. It was one night, and I wanted to learn more about it. And what did he find? He bought the VHS of World Cup Jonah Lomu. I saw Jonah Lomu.
Oh, nice. Which was just that year. So it was
right there. Yeah, man. So it was and when I played, and we used to play pickup football on Sundays, and now, it was just, I was hard to bring down. And I was just I can do this. It was just and then we learned the rules. And, we had, what's his name? George Hook. He came and did, I think he played for Ireland, veteran.
Yeah.
He came and did a weekend clinic with us.
Wow.
We played against Marist College. They had a team for a minute. I think at that point it was 25, 26 years. And the first game we had, I'm not exaggerating, we probably had about 400, 500 fans. The whole school just couldn't believe that. I mean, there was professors, we were really close with the families that worked in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
Especially the players of color. It was that's that bond we kind of had.
Right.
And they were white, they were local, but it was just that class thing. They got it. It
was the down to earth feel plus we're all together. I feel like this is one of those advantages that come from going to a smaller school, and that I've always heard. So
you're not competing against multi-million-dollar sports. You're not, and then so with that experience, and we lost our first game. Because but the only reason why we lost to an established club was we literally picked up the winger from the soccer team, and I don't know if he forgot or maybe we didn't explain to him that you had to place the ball down. So if he puts the ball down in the try zone, we actually win.
Yeah.
We lost 13-10.
Oh, man. So basically just amateur error.
Yeah.
Simple amateur error.
And that was one of those things where for us, it took off from there. I mean, it brought us all together, and it was just an experience, and to see where the campus was and what the school did. And when I made the transition I actually gave up my senior year, that transition. I stopped playing basketball. My grades went up. The support went up. The teamwork went up. It was just like I felt like growing up playing basketball, even though it was very culturally embedded in who I was, it was still always kind of an individual effort for me. It was like, a ticket out, or for myself, it's a ticket out. It's a way out, and to be able to be a part of a team at that point that it was still majority, white players, but
it was close.
It was and it was close, and it was representation, and the person who we started the team with, like his family bought our first goalpost. They bought our first 2 set of jerseys. Nice. His family did that, and he and I were super close. And 1997, he had to take a semester off, and then when he came back to visit us, he died in a car accident. Coming back to visit, and so there's a lot of rugby embedded in me, not as a sport, but like growing up with another group of individuals to actually a part of me.
That fraternal action come into full fruition without actually having to join the fraternity.
Yeah. Because
it was something that it was, and which is what we always constantly want to sell rugby. There's that fraternal sorority kind of feel to it. It's just a matter of trying to make sure that the culture establishes itself more and more in that basis. But to be able to have that, like, that's real. Because I always say, like, the one reason why I got sold on rugby wasn't so much just what the play on the field, because playing football, playing literally any contact sport, I could get that same kind of rush. But it was what happened off the field that was more conducive to my element, my soul. And that's what ended up being like, okay, this is a sport that I need to double down in. And obviously, want to really make something out of it, because it did have that element from that is, it's an underestimated concept. And
I've never felt like I had to fit in. Like, I've always been able to be who I've been, I hear the more young people I speak to, I'm getting educated by them, because I also realize for a lot of them, it's not even, and what I'm discovering, it's not even just people from marginalized, groups. It's a lot of people feel like they do a lot to fit in.
Yeah.
And that's, and I'm learning that. And I feel like, wow, I've been fortunate enough where I see the adversity. I've experienced it coming from across the pitch.
Right.
I've experienced it, at times when people don't realize, on my team, there may have been comments, but I've never felt, what I've seen and what I've heard. I felt isolated, but just hearing now, you would think with the amount, of our people playing the game, it's the same thing, as what we just talked about earlier. It's so much work needs to be done.
Yeah.
So much.
So, and it's, we'll touch on that in a bit, but I want to just kind of get to the point, because I really want to get to how it got to M.A.D.E, but I really want to get to the point, and we'll be able to go from there. So for you, jumping out from rugby from college, you have this family element. You're out of college now. What happened after that? Like, did you just join straight into club? Did you take some time off?
No, I was privileged enough to be a part of Linwood in New Zealand for a little bit. It was a short stint, but it was to be able to experience it.
You say this so casually, like it was a thing for you to go ahead into.
It wasn't. It wasn't because of race, that piece I'll just leave alone. It wasn't the club, but it was just the environment. So that's sometimes it's a part that I just choose not to really engage. But I do, I probably shouldn't even have mentioned it. But, I was able to experience it and go to experience that for a little bit.
But what was the reason? Because, again, that's why I said...
No, it was the opportunity. It was the opportunity. Like, I had the opportunity coming out at that time, I was good enough, like in the region. This is before social media, before people were taping, videos. I was fortunate enough to play for the Albany Knicks. And I was like, more or less, I was a standout at that point, but I never really knew the possibilities of where rugby could go. And for me, I don't think it was at that level here where like they weren't really sending people across seas and there wasn't these inter-club connections now. So yeah, and like I said, my experience had nothing to do with the club there.
Right. But it was just it was the opportunity. So in that impact, okay, so you have this impact of you're coming from rough areas. You have this family environment that comes in from the college that you're able to essentially curate and create within this diverse area. Then you're able to go overseas into this land area that you're able to get it. By this point, like, how is this perception growing in terms of your own personal philosophy? Because these are three very dynamically different cultures that you are intersecting with, but they seem very progressively climbing on each one.
I mean, it is, because it's just one of those things where I've always kind of looked at life as, relationships. I always looked at the opportunities, like when I have these experiences, it's who I engage with and, who am I, what am I, like, what is a transactional relationship? Like, what is mutually benefiting? And I don't mean like, what can you give me? It's just a feel. And then to be able to have these opportunities to climb, it's so funny that you use the word climb, and we could talk about that with M.A.D.E. Like, that's why for me, like, using stairs is such a thing. Stairs is just is an example, like levels, and like I'm just trying to think, like, sometimes it's just hard to put it in words. It's emotional for me because I look at the people that I've known through this sport that I've lost. And I've had a lot of loss in this sport. And so I definitely think that climb has a huge deal to do with the approach that I have with young ruggers in communities now. I think whenever I played, even as a Village Lion, my attitude was always about the individuals that are giving up that Saturday to come play with me, those individuals that are coming to practice, and what is transactional in that regard for me to be able to make that sacrifice and to get them to understand that I understand that they're making that sacrifice. And I think that's also the mutual benefit of me being able to work with young people as well. Like that's a part of my everyday. That's how, when I work with students, that's how I, able to manage that. So a lot of it is, I think a lot of times I never really look at, hey, I'm on this stage, and it's not me being, being humble, or like, that's just always how I looked at it.
Right.
And I think playing sports my whole life, like a lot of people see sports as like that big stage, and for me, that was never a thing. It was always just always what I did. It was always, rucker basketball, playground basketball, AAU basketball, like playing in front of a crowd was a part of your environment. So I think I've kind of always felt like I was playing for something bigger, especially once I realized that at times I was the only black player on the field.
Right.
I think that's why I continue, being 44 now. I think that's why I still play. I feel comfortable now. Like, I'm ready to retire. I'm ready because I'm looking at, I'm looking at the Derricks, the Kyles, the Gavins, the Jatavias. I can go on and on. Connor Wallace. Like, we could just keep going and going. I'm looking at these young men in Philly. I don't know if in my lifetime I thought I would see that. Like, that's how much the sport has transitioned, where our presence is our presence is where we're present.
Right.
And I love the fact that now we're starting to make that impact. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking, especially during this time. So like that, I think as everything that was happening, all the opportunities I had, and maybe it would have been different. Now, you look at all these, you look at Tiger, you look at, we have, Roots. I mean, just in terms of platforms that are available. Unless it's maybe if all that was there when I was younger, maybe it would have been different.
I don't know.
Because I don't know. Huh?
I said it does go back to that. What's the environment? So even to your point, when you talk about presence, I remember I was talking with Ram Eddings, who's the founder of the Grey Wolves, which was what I think it was the first predominantly black traveling rugby team in the U.S. And he even spoke on these same situations of trying to become more present, trying to establish and continue to create that connection for black players, particularly for black players, and trying to be able to find that placement where you are being able to get these guys who don't maybe know about the opportunities that are out there, because there's always opportunity, but it's that unique right opportunity. It's almost like finding the small school and just being able to attach them to it and present it. And even in his time, over the course of basically a decade and a half, he was talking about like you just constantly are dealing with this question of, all right, am I doing this correctly? And are we putting this in place? Like, are we enacting the way that we want to? And you do the efforts. So I think that sometimes it's like it has to build in, like it's set pieces. It's you have a first layer, and then something has to pull it back. Then the second layer kicks in, and it pulls it back a little bit. Then third. But each time you're doing it, you're padding down. Where now when you have those Tigers and et cetera like that, the opportunity is much more of a lucrative one than it is maybe just a emotional one, which works together.
No, I mean, but also, like, it's kind of interesting what opportunities may have taken to be, because at that time I probably would have been, I'm looking at the culture if they existed, and I'm speaking in that time frame. I probably would have been the only black person, like
making history, brother.
Yeah, I mean, like that's one of those things where even there's an age difference between myself, Kyle, and Derek, but we always tell a story. Like I remember seeing Derek in a subway car. He's playing for Old Blue. I'm playing for Village Lions, and we're looking at each other like, rugby, brother, and then that same year, literally, Kyle is at Iona. Yeah. And we happen to have the same coach. His coach coached my men's club. And I saw him, and I don't even know if I'm even saying this right, but brother, it was funny. We kind of like gravitated and went and shook each other's hand because at that time I was the only black player on the first half of the Village Lions, and he was tearing it up at Iona. And I think they may have made a national run. And it's just funny as they watch them get older. And us being, the few brothers at a and then, but even then, looking back at it, I'm like, I don't remember. Like now, I'm like, I look at Coma. It wasn't that many sisters, at these tournaments either. So like let's look at it both sides. And there's a whole nother conversation within itself, because I think in the scope, getting older and being around, you kind of see. Everything as a whole. But like I often reflect, like that's why like I have so much respect for Coma Gandy. Like I remember meeting her and starting calling her sis, and just remember always owning. Like she's always been a presence. So yeah, I mean it's that.
It's a comfort. It literally, as you speak of it, it reminds me of this thing that I've always said called Black in Asia, and essentially it's that same concept of, you're when you're out in this area where there's such a rare few,
and you see, obviously you see another black guy, another black person, it's the acknowledgement. That is the basis of it, the acknowledgement. But I had a situation when I was there, and this guy that I got to meet, it was that situation where it was like we see each other, we're like, yo, brother, but the feeling is it's not just a rugby, but it's the vibe of like. Is the vibe of not just knowing, not just knowledge, but it's like a continuity. It's like, yo, you are me and I am you. You are my keeper, I am yours. And I feel responsible to be able to maintain this in whatever brief or extended process it is. It's not, and as a result, I also get that same comfort of knowing, yo, you can be my keeper without, in whatever short or extended form, but the knowledge of knowing that we are in this same presence and surviving is like confidence in and of itself.
And it's also just looking at them and knowing that they were younger and just being like, you know what? And, it's looking at them as the future of the sport and being like, just to be able to be in a situation where like reflecting the amount of conversations that I've had recently and people are like, do you realize that you're the first black rugby player that I spoke to? Like,
it's wild.
That to me, that's wild. Like that. I've had kids say, "Hey, you don't remember me?" And I'm like, "No." They were like, "Yeah, at a tournament." It was actually one of the Play Rugby USA first games, and kids had basketball shorts, and it was cold. It was New York Sevens, and they. I walked over because I knew the coach. I played with one of their coaches in college, and he asked me to come. And I sat down and spoke, and I'll never forget that, man. There was, there were 12 to 15 of our black and brown youth, and getting ready to play their first game, or in their first tournament.
Impressive.
And so, and then to come back years later and see, to be at a gala, and I'm telling one of the kids who's graduating from there, who graduated, an alum, that I really appreciated his words and that his speech was inspiring. And he looks at me and goes, "You don't remember me?" And I'm like, "No." He was like, "Well, I'm Ariel. I'll never forget that cold day." And he was like, "You were the first black player that I spoke to."
Dude, that's so dope. It resonates like you'll never know until, and that's the people that talk to you and let you know. You don't even know those other ones that had that interconnection with you and were able to forever remember it, and it just goes with the rest of their action, whether it's direct or indirect.
The gym coach at my school, who the rugby, he's in charge, Aristotle Rivas, who's had over 200, probably close to 250. Middle schoolers play rugby at our school. It's the most popular elective at our school. He was also in that group, and I didn't realize it until we ended up in the same place. We've seen each other around, but when we started walking, he said, "Yeah, I remember you," and I'm just like,
"Wow." So is it with these realizations, this understanding? Is this what ended up motivating what M.A.D.E was, essentially?
I mean, the motivation behind that was, playing rugby and Village Lions. We just made, playoff run. We had a rough season afterwards when we tried to move up to D1. And, I was working. I was a behavior specialist in the Bronx, but that's when gym memberships are still like 70. This is before Planet Fitness and New York Sports Club. So, gym memberships are like $70, $80 a month.
Right.
And
y'all's crazy New York prices.
Yeah. And at that point, I couldn't afford it. And where I lived at the time, the park that I grew up around had stairs. And one day, I used to run around the park. I used to jog. And then one day I said, let me just hit these stairs, just start running these stairs. And it became a pattern of running stairs. And then I started doing circuits. So I started doing, set the timer for 10 minutes, push-ups. I laugh now because this was like way before, this was like before CrossFit became big. So I'm doing circuits, doing squats, push-ups, hitting the stairs. How many times I could do it in 10 minutes, and then I would add a minute, or I would just play around with it. Now I'm gonna add this. Now I'm gonna add that.
Right.
And that's when kettlebells got big. So I got one kettlebell. Started, squats with the kettlebell. Snatches, running up and down the stairs. And then it was like a transitional summer where I lost a lot of weight. Mm-hmm. And everyone was, my teammates were like, hey, what are you doing? How can we get in on that? What can we do? And I said, just all I'm doing, just come. And so it started with a handful. And it was crazy because it was even within that handful was a diverse handful. And my teammates came, and then my brother came out, different people from my life started. One of my best friends, who was one of the real motivations behind it, he had a stroke, I believe, 34, 35 years old. And, that was the big community aspect of it for me. It was kind of like he had, all of these things that was going on. And I was kind of detached from his life. And I had known him since I was 13 years old. And so that made it a little bit more communal for me. That's when I started inviting people from the neighborhood that I grew up with, which was right down the hill. They started small world. Some of the people that were coming out, I didn't even realize that their children were students at the school that I was the behavior specialist at the time before I was dean at that school. One of the kids there, his mom helped. It was like, was a babysitter from time to time, and my mom knew her mom, and they were best friends, and I had no idea that was her son. Like, that's how disconnected, where.
So it feels like two parts. It feels extremely wide in terms of the disconnect, but it also shows like how small the community really was simultaneously.
Yeah, and I mean, and that's my dog. But Dag, whenever he sees the mail, I'm like, yo. He's never done that.
He's like, yo, I want to get into the conversation too. Like, why are you trying to hold me out from this?
Sorry about that, Gift.
No worries.
My bad. So yeah, I mean, that was just one of the things where that was disconnected. But at the same time, it was like, it made me realize that process wouldn't be so hard to kind of bring it back together. Right. And I kind of felt like that was something that needed to happen. And I think, what kind of tied it together was in 2014 when I lost my mom. That was just one of the things. My drive for community comes from her. She was a community mom. If you ever come across any of my friends I grew up with, they're always going to tell you a story about my mother. What she did. And, she ran a soup kitchen. She supervised a soup kitchen and food pantry for almost 20, 25 years. And just that whole, even when she was sick, terminal, diagnosed, stage 4, she could move. She was actually still going on Mondays. Like, I got to get there. Like, this is what's keeping me, moving and that need and that connection. And so, I mean, I definitely think in that regard, I'm my mother's son. Not just because I wake up and I try to be. It's the values.
Innate.
Yeah, it's the values that her and as well. I think what she radiated to a lot of people. Yeah. They kind of brought it back to, to me. And so that push of it being, fitness. I always, fitness is be honest, is an easy way to bring people together. Right. And then, but when it's what kind of feeling or what kind of atmosphere you create when you're there. Like my attitude was always, I'm going to be at the stairs training.
You can come if you like, but I'm going to be here.
Yeah, whether it's one of us, whether it's 12 of us, we going to get this work in. And, even when I tell people, I say life happens. I would get text messages and people would say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't make it. I'll be there next. I'm like, be accountable to yourself. If you're not there, you're not there.
Right. It's not make or breaking your time or situation. Yeah. You're going to do it. This is just, hey.
You don't need my permission to be your life. If you can't make it, you can't make it.
Man.
Dude,
it's It's real. And you know what? Again, it goes back, and it feels like there's the reoccurring concept that you have for that philosophy of, look, I'm here to do this. And it kind of makes sense, again, kind of jumping back a little bit, but what you did at Bard with being able to create that team and then moving forward, where it's just like, look, I'm going to be part of this. You can come join with me to be part of this. We can make it work. And it becomes an attraction. So you set a family in one, you set a family in another, and then subsequently you create another set of family, even with the M.A.D.E situation, with the early stages of the M.A.D.E situation. The key component being like, hey, I will be an unintentional tentpole for this. It's just, you're invited to be here. You are not required. You're not mandated.
Then I got into the whole, as I delved more and did more of a deep dive into education, and just buying in, like fully buying in, because it felt innate, the whole idea of restorative practices. And a lot of people look at it as forms of intervention. Restorative justice, restorative practices. People look at so much the amends, making amends piece of it, that a lot of people are keyed. But there's so much that can be done on a community level that makes it, preventative. It's just.
I was going to say, if you can you quickly define restorative practices for?
Well, I mean, to
summate might be a better.
Yeah. I mean, just to put it away, it's basically, it's been used throughout history, through tribal, through cultures, through indigenous peoples. It's the whole concept of a council. It's a whole concept of everyone has a stake in a community. Everyone has buy-in. There's basic rules when you sit in a circle. Such as speak from the heart, listen from the heart, be mindful of others' time. One mic, and there's usually a talking piece. So for us, that's something that our ancestors, that's something that was in a lot of ways the cultures that we grew up around. And it's just, I consider myself to be the community facilitator.
Right.
And so when you use it in schools, the reason why it's amazing in schools is that everyone has a stake, and that everyone has a voice. So it's kind of like, if an infraction is caused, or if an infraction happens, let's say if there's bullying, right? A lot of times schools take the power away from the individual that has been bullied. They're saying, you're a bully and we don't do this at the school. So you cause an offense to the school. They don't really pay attention a lot of times to the individual that was harmed. So a lot of times you don't. So in restorative practices, we would ask the questions like, what happened? What were you feeling at the time? So we go through these series of questions, and you get to say, what do you think needs to happen to make it right? Mm-hmm. Simple. There's no, those simple. And you ask those to all parties involved. You could ask that to the kid who was being bullied. You ask that to the bully, and you ask it to the people who witnessed it. And so it gives everyone time to process. And it's not an easy process. It's not a short process. That's the summation of it. A lot of it is, what's your stake? What's your voice? Speak your truth. Because a lot of times that's when you really get into the deep dive, and you create that platform where you're not targeting, because then when you do, when you have enough infractions, we still use that language, of misconduct and offender, and which is straight dialogue that contributes
to just more of the isolation and just continues to
the school to prison pipeline. That's just, if you look at the handbooks, there's a lot of it as if it's like there's the law. We're touching, like in my school, we don't have school safety. We don't have police officers. We don't have, it's a middle school, but this is a middle school in Washington Heights. About 97, 98% of our kids are black and brown kids from the community. We don't, there's no police in our school. There's no, we get the parents to understand they have to buy in. This is not a upper middle class neighborhood. This is not, this is Washington Heights,
It sounds like because of the fact that you guys are taking the time to learn the why and the depth of the why, it actually gives the kids not only a chance, like you're explaining, not only a chance to, it doesn't just give the teacher and the infractor a chance to be able to hear the kid out, but it gives that kid a chance to actually process their actions more. So it's now going from, oh, it just makes me mad, to, oh, now we're creating the conscious decision. Oh, now I have a choice, but now I know why the choice is being made. And subsequently, whatever choices are being made after that get layered against that former data piece that is now being created.
I mean, and I know, I mean, just for time's sake, but I want to just give you a quick example.
Yeah, please.
We had a student, this is not in my current school, but this is a previous place I worked. We had a student who reported another student bullying him, right? And so we had a conversation with this student who was being bullied, and he was like, well, why, did this happen? Yeah, I was mad, I threatened them, and I'm like, why? And how long? He said, this has been going on for about a week and a half. Kid owned up to it. This was a private conversation. And I was like, why? He goes, every time, like the teacher, Ms. Blank, I'm not going to throw under the bus, but she focuses on, being prepared for class. And I knew that the other student, he always has pens and pencils. He has a whole case. And I asked him, could I borrow a pen? And he said, no, I don't have one. And I know, like, I'm looking at him and he has it.
Right. So
my question now is, talking to him and processing with him, like, what was probably another way you can handle it, and mind you, at that time, about 70% of our students, probably a little less, but if you look at the actual, if the kids had individualized education plans, would have qualified as being special ed. And so we talked to the other young man. Is that true? Yeah, because I always lend my stuff out and I don't get it back.
Interesting.
So
now we have a reason. It's not malicious.
And so the kid that is bullying, the kid that the kid says is bullying him.
Yeah.
So we have this conversation, but my pushback now goes back to the teacher.
Okay.
Like, you want kids to be prepared for class, but we also have to understand it's you giving kids straight zeros. Like, we understand, like, I'm not sitting there saying in situations you always have to excuse, but we also have an understanding of the backgrounds, especially this particular student's situation, when I'm not going to say his name, but his family's in a shelter. Like, right. Why,
give him we can give a framework with a flexibility.
Yeah.
It's okay to maintain the framework. We get it. But also understand what is the situations that can be able to fit between there.
And at the same time, and I understood her reasoning for it, because a lot of schools do that, but she was literally one of few teachers, like maybe one of two teachers that did that graded kids on preparedness, for class. Instead of, like now, I like being in an environment where we have a kind of, we call prime time. Mm-hmm. In prime time, we go through Monday, you come in and we make sure you're prepared for the week.
Okay, nice.
You know what I'm saying? Do you have your pens? We have that time. Is your laptop charged? We get, like, every student comes in, they get a laptop. Like, right. So is your laptop charged? Are you ready? Did you go through your email? Like, so like that's part of the teacher's job as well.
So Monday becomes a mulligan day as opposed to having to worry about it Sunday night where there's not as much control. Monday gives them a chance. So 4 days out of the week, they should be at least have had the help to be prepared.
Yeah.
But Monday, at least you get, and that takes away the stereotype of a crappy Monday.
Yeah. Like, you come in like, is everything ready? And even then, most teachers do that every day. You got, it's a 35-minute period. So it's like, hey, you got 10 minutes. You got 10 minutes to make sure you got everything you need. If you don't have it, let us know. If not, so it's it's getting you to practice like good habits. Like, they go through the practice of making sure they're prepared. You can't tell someone to be prepared if they really don't know what that means. If they've never had
that discipline set into their habit.
Yeah. It's like, it's kind of like, you putting someone at scrum half for the first time on every game, and they don't, understand, like they don't, fly. Like there's no practice. There's no.
Right. Which is generally part of the purpose of school in the long end, which is to be able to help you prepare in totality as you create these habits and actions that will, resonate themselves or should resonate themselves in the future.
Yeah. It's holistic. It's just dealing with everything on a holistic level.
No, that's true.
And I think, and that's what, and, bringing it back to your point, I think those are the things that I've learned over the years. And I think that's what the push is, I would say, within M.A.D.E, where it's like rugby is a tool. Like with M.A.D.E, I'm not knocking, any of it. It's not the product. It's not the, like a lot of programs, they put things together to play good rugby. Like they want a lot of, and where for me, it's creating the environment with anyone that if you're going to be a great rugby player and the values of what we're looking to build as a community is made helps, cool. If you never play rugby again and you decide to be a guy, we're still here. Like there's no, to me, it's more about understanding, those routines that restorative practice, those conversations, and even within yourself, it's everyone has a story, like everybody who we engage within our group is, I want to hear your story. Like I want to hear as much as you want to divulge, and, I want to hear your truth. And it's all about, Hunter and I, we've been working together. He's a partner. I asked him to, and it's just because his level of authenticity, after knowing him for a while, knowing what he's invested in a lot of kids and people, it's just one of those things where you look at him. R.O.O.T.S. I can also use R.O.O.T.S as an example. Another part with R.O.O.T.S is, it's the highest platform for the rugby diaspora, but more importantly, I'm invested in them because those are authentic, like Kyle, like they're, to me, I look at, I bring on even Jatavia with M.A.D.E. She's to me, I call it, she's a U23 consultant, just in terms of the different perspectives that she brings to me as a young person. But those are the people that I see getting up, try to be their best selves. I'm not saying it's going to be perfect every day, but these are
intent. Yes, just working and the willingness to work towards it.
And I say more than anything with R.O.O.T.S, like that's my drive to continue to work and be a part, of that family. Like I said, I brought up Jatavia. We got another young man that you guys are definitely going to hear about, Oliver Fagan. He's out in Cali, deciding where he's headed, and it's just. I'm not trying to find the best rugby players. I'm just looking for like-minded individuals. Like when I put up posts, I'm not worried about, how many likes or followers. I'm trying to see who's reaching out and, hey, what is it about? And I'll tell them. And a lot of people are just like, cool. Like, do you mind? I don't mind somebody saying, could you make me a video, or could you do this, or or like how you did this picture, or could you do this? And then that's how the relationship's built. They say, I was following your page, like this is an interesting quote or a post or a logo. And it's just like, it just takes off from there.
Again, the process of attracting people into the family and bringing them into the community.
Yeah. I'm not trying to have 200,000 followers or make, it's about community. And I tell young people, like, hey, I'm selfish. Like, when I have kids, you guys are responsible for taking care of mine. So, I'm trying to create, that space, to be in a place where, the future is surrounded and guided by, authentic people.
Right.
People, I always say, like, M.A.D.E equals community, which equals best self, which equals high performance. And when I mean high performance, doesn't mean showing off or exhibiting. It's what's your daily intention. You know, when you get up in the morning, what are you good with in terms of what do you feel you need to be your best self?
No, and I think that's real because, look, I remember, I always love referring back to this, but whenever I was talking with Farrah Douglas with Mount St. Mary's, speaking with her, it was such a relation whenever she was talking about how much identity impacts field play. And to what your point is, and not directly to field play, but to the point of determining identity and being able to know self, and being able to create that community and be able to have that confidence to be able to be your vulnerable self and to be your full self, you're able to get far more introspection on who you are as a person, which only matures you and makes you stronger because of the fact that there becomes more settlement in that. And so to have a protective area.
And to pretend where, you know, it's just like there is a struggle, you know, there is that struggle through your experiences in life. When you do come across, you know, this climate of, you know, racial and social injustice and, you know, and being able to reflect into the, you know, to the point where, but also I can recall incidents in which I could have easily been the target of a race attack. And, you know, I can count on a few, you know, times where the people who stepped up and whipped butt were white because they saw what was happening. And looking at that and constantly like not saying like there's never an identity thing, but it's just interesting where it's just like what make those moments, you know, like we can figure out what makes those different, but also like I wake up every morning, know when I step out of my building, I know I'm a black man. Like you know, the community, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Yeah. You know, that's one of the things that my mom always told me. She said, love who you love. You know why you choose your friendships. Invest in your friendships. And that's what I think ties it all back to restorative practices. It's investing. It's investing in people. And investing doesn't mean put trust. You know, you invest sometimes to get perspective. You invest to learn more about yourself. Right. And so that it always comes back to that piece of like, I'm very aware of who I am. Like I have no questions about, you know, that identity, but I also realize like the world, you know, that I've been exposed to and because of that, I'm able to walk not a straight line, but I'm able to walk a line. I'm able to walk the straight line, you know, as a black man. I don't bite my tongue when it comes to injustice. I don't bite my tongue when I see things that just, you know, not just race, you know, like obviously, but, you know, social injustice, any issue. I mean, even in one of the things that I bring up with like Jatavia and Oliver in our chats is adultism. Like that's a huge thing. Like everybody thinks they know what's best for kids. Like even this whole it's like everyone is taking a stance to protect kids and or you know, because that drains all the way back down to I'm the adult, do what I tell you, or an adult knows what's best, or we have nothing to learn from young people, or they're lost, you know, they don't, that still exists. So it's just so much that we contend with on a day-to-day. And I think, and also to bring it back, that's where I'm seeing now this utopia that people had of rugby is being stripped away. Because all this stuff is coming to light now. All of this. You know, I'm hearing conversations of how when players are being recruited, how, you know, they don't like how the coaches are reaching out or how they're talking to them, or coaches are the way coaches are, you know, gathering information and is bringing, you know, it's just like from young players, you know, to everything that we're dealing with now, you know, in terms of, you know, the, you know, transphobia, you know, it's
interesting because, you know, it's one of those messages that I think have steadily been coming in. And like we talked before we jumped onto the podcast, but like this 2020 year, I think leading into it, I know for a lot of people, and I know for me, I always felt like this is going to be a major change year. Like, I didn't know what it was going to be. This was like, yo, this is going to be a year. And I think this has been it. But I think there's been so many things. Whenever we talk about, like, the issues that happened, like, I remember this rugby movie that came out about 3 years ago called Mercenary. It's a French movie, but it was about this Samoan guy. The Samoan guy who got basically recruited from Samoa to play for teams up in France. But basically, it was just like an abuse system of exploiting these Polynesian guys in this rugby system and going through. And it's not to say, obviously, well, whatever we can say, not all rugby people are blah, 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 blah. We know the line, right? But the concept is, yo, this game, as beautiful as it is, and the culture that as nice as it can be, it has its dark spots. It's the same reason why it's whenever people go, oh, rugby is safer than football because of lesser concussions, and you're like, well, no, you've got to actually factor in that concussions can still happen in rugby. Don't use these false hyperbolic statements as your set piece, because there's a truth in rugby of safety and community, but you have to be genuine with what it goes along with. And so, like, these concepts, yeah.
I mean, no, and like that, I think that's the hardest part. And I think, that's something that I deal with now. I don't, anything that, we do, and when I say we, like, like, there's no initiation, right? There's no fee. Like, I consider you, to be a part of the community if we're reaching out and we're having these conversations and you right. Invest in it as much as you want to go. And like there's no magic speech or words. It's just what you said is being genuine. But a lot of people think, but that's when I go back to, well, what I said, M.A.D.E equals community equals best self equals high performance. Like, you're genuine, that high performance piece is your self-work. Like, right. Are you really, I don't want to say trying your best or trying your hardest to perform or to do. It's, are you really looking within yourself? Like, are you really, like, we have these times where we look, like, social media, I love to watch because it's just to, and I don't mean like, I don't comment. It's just interesting.
Seeing the emotion, seeing how people end up
themselves. You learn, why people do it. And I've learned to do it and try to do it without judgment.
Right.
It's, because that you end up on overload, like you understand, like if somebody says something that you don't like, my whole thing is if you have a relationship with a person, I'm going to call them. I'm not going to get into it, engage in a back and forth on the words on their page. But certain people, I don't know their story. Maybe maybe they had a history of being, bullied or teased. And so therefore they're going to speak up. It's just so many layers to everything.
Right.
And when you learn this, it's just always have that open line of communication to be able to hear each other's story, instead of assuming or being righteous about your approach, that your experience is better than theirs or their experience is wrong.
And I think that is one of the most important factors. I know for me, it has been that learning process. And then, like you said, being able to watch it, it's two parts. It's understanding both the complexities of people, but also simultaneously recognize the trend and pattern of people generationally. And a lot of times we often think that the trends really differ from time to time, but human behavior still ends up being human behavior. And you have to understand that the complexity of the individual person has a tendency to just develop the same cycle of human behavior to the point where you go like, I get it. Like, I get where it's coming from. It's not, like you said, knowing the background. It might not be as malicious in their head, or it might not be as kind as they want to try and portray it. But the intention comes from these habits and actions that
And then sometimes though, and it's just like, but also I have a lot of respect, because sometimes it's, especially if you know the person, like sometimes what's wrong is wrong. You put something racist or
Facts. Facts. But look, even within a racist statement, and don't get me wrong, it's not racist and don't leave him alone, but there is a reason that comes behind it.
Oh yeah, and what I'm saying is I respect that when people are confronting it in the way you choose.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like I'm one of those people where, like, if I do something, call me out, but there's people have their own methods and their ways of doing it, but I just feel like sometimes when that happens, it never leads to when you enter a situation, you have to weigh, did you want something productive to come out of it?
Right.
Do you want a result? Or were you expressing how you felt about, and both can be valid. Like if your intention was to go in and say, I want to blast this person because what they were wrong, versus, hey, I want this person
to get this thing out of it.
To never do this again.
Right. Like it is a different, and that's why I say it goes back to that understanding of the trend, because it does let you know, one, maybe how to have a better awareness of how to feel that energy out and be able to properly convey or not convey what you have in mind. And even in that thought process, even inserting yourself, it's letting yourself know why you feel this need to insert yourself into the situation if you're really trying to have that energy. Because everything comes with that deeper why. Yes. It comes with that deeper why.
And I think the hardest thing is, like, even with myself, I'm still trying to figure out that why. Like, you know, we all, I think that's the journey.
Right.
That journey is figuring out that why.
No, and it says a lot into that effect. So, as you're continuing this process and you're working with these young players and you see what's happening in rugby, for you, I don't want to say, do you know what the solution is, because it's never a one kind thing. It's not a one process thing. But for you, what is as we say, the momentum that you are seeing or you hope to be able to see that can help kind of lead things, maybe not to the utopia, because utopia typically means that there's something being subjugated down, but to the community cohesion that can occur, that, we stand by, or hope to stand by?
I mean, I think that, there's a couple things. There's a lot of programs that think they have the way. There's a lot of programs that do a lot of things right, but they're not talking to each other.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They're not looking to, when I say, M.A.D.E is a community, it's just kind of setting a platform in terms of, there's roots. I have conversations, just kind of a think tank with, Will Snape Play Rugby. Like, we talk, just to kind of chat, because at the end of the day, he's still working with hundreds of young people,
right.
And so it's being able to understand, if you really want the sport to take off, right? And I'm not going to say the sport, the community to take off. Just to play on words a little bit, we need to remove the sense of entitlement to be an entity.
Right.
We're not an entity. Rugby, no matter what people say, I look at New York City, right? And we have our elite clubs, right? That in terms of that play on that high level. And there's clubs that do community work. There's clubs that do a great, but it's just why aren't we tying this together? Why, it's when you look at the struggles, in order for us to be an entity in New York, Village Lions and Old Blue can do a community service together. It's one of the things that I love about the sport having, more Black and Indigenous people of color is we've been through so much. The club rivalries are ridiculous to us in a lot of ways. We want to play for the best club and we want to win.
Right.
But we look at each other, it's like what you said before. That was the difference. Let's say, when Kyle is with Nyack and Derek is with Old Blue, you're like, brother, it's you can't tell me. We've probably been through all the stuff that we've been through in our life, all the hate that we encounter off this pitch. you expect me to be like, oh,
bring that over here.
I hate him because he's wearing that jersey. Like, that's just not, you know. And I think that's the growth, and that's the impact. You know, even though we you know, as we're seeing articles and we're hearing stories and we're seeing videos, you know, that's the battle that I'm happy that we're fighting
right
now, and we're engaged in, and we're supporting, because I believe that now when we step on that field, we see that it's a sport for opportunity and bonding. And I think that's the growth, and that's the direction that we need to continue. I mean, for myself, it's taking these experiences and run for board positions. You know, be coaches.
Right.
Run for club VP. Run for club president. You know, like that. I'm happy. And I'm looking at my team right now, like the shift that the Village Lions have has been inclusive, but just in terms of, you have Coma, who's, you know, men's head coach.
Right.
You know, me being able to be on the board of directors, you know, on our board, you know, it's you know, Eugene Aiken, and we're in, you know, the invitation to a lot of young brothers and sisters, and if you're the only person there, you need that support. Like, it's creating that kind of a network. You know, that's why I see, you know, R.O.O.T.S and M.A.D.E together, providing that network in terms of, you want to run for VP, but you don't know how, what you do, reach out and have a conversation. You know, and if you feel that in your conversations you're being railroaded, you know, we can talk about, you know, strategies, or we can see what's up and why is that happening, you know. And I think, like, as we start, and I think, like, my generation, and it probably within my 10-year gap, we're starting to see us up in the coaching positions and in those positions. And I think, like, at what point do we say, like, that's what we need to do, like, and step up and fill those roles, you know?
And I think it's one of those that's why I go back to, like, what we were talking about, like, what would have happened if the opportunities like Tiger and everything had existed back in maybe the 90s, and how it would have changed the way the career goes. I think this also plays into that, you have this history where you understand deeply a lot of the issues that occur within it. And so when the time comes to step up, it's not even just like a natural inclination to hit it, but it's almost like a must. That is like, I need to step into this board. And what ends up happening is that rolling effect. So what we see now is, while it was maybe 20 years between a board member of color or a board member of color or some disenfranchised group getting into it. Now it goes to 10 years. Now it goes to 5 years in between. Now it drops to 1. Now it's just from cycle to cycle to cycle. And now then it's just the norm. But we see these generational shifts over and over and over again. But that becomes part of that mentorship, that becomes part of that opportunity and creation of these opportunities that we were able to observe prior to and now bring forward. But we have to push it forward as well.
And even on our club, we've had the beauty in the past. And I think, like, it would have been interesting to see the momentum that we have now, you know, and also to be like, to also acknowledge that we've had, since I've been on the team, two women of color, they were presidents of our club, you know, and I think like now as this grows, like and they're very impactful now. You know, they're still a support, they're still visible, but it's just like, it's interesting to see where the momentum is now. And then it just kind of goes back to look at the framework in which they, you know, laid down in their own way, for the club to you know, to be able to move forward and exist and create this space now where, you know, the players, especially the players of color on my team, you know, it's not saying like, oh, we were just grunted, but it's like, nah, like, we're in a position on a club where we can have an impact.
Right. And you have to take, and this is what's always asked. It's like, hey, how do you get inside the room? How do you become part of the room so that you can open up these other opportunities? And this is one of the things that I think is, like you said, like what you do, what you guys have done with Roots, and even, you know, like I told you with Ram and Grey Wolves, even all these industry, you know, Phaedra, PSK, whatever you want to call it, you know, you have these multiple opportunities to now step inside and be like, okay, let's not just try and have you guys go out and find the culture. It's like, we're going to keep bringing the culture in. And that's going to set up the planes for everybody else. Just setting up the planes.
And I think that's what Roots has done. You know, I look at, you know, Hayden, you know, who had a strong impact for me, who was the first Black rugby player I'd ever seen. Right. You know, live, up close in person, and playing for Old Blue at Van Cortlandt Park. And then just hearing, like, you know, like you said, Phaedra, like just being like, for a while, this girl, I don't know if she ever felt this way, you know, like, you know, it's a conversation I would love to have her, but it was like, I viewed her as like someone on an island. Like, she was out there.
Right.
You know, like, I'm like, she's out there doing it, you know, in a sea of people that don't look like us. She was out there doing it, you know, and you know, just having that much more love and respect for people that you meet over time. You know, and I think a lot of times when, you know, it's bridging that gap with the old to the young, because a lot of people see it, and when they hear things, and when you see it through social media or you read something, your spin on it is like, what did they do? Or why aren't they doing more? Or why aren't they doing this? But it's just like, create the space to be able to sit down and reach out and actually have that conversation and be able to have that story. Like, if you're real quick to text, the amount of time for you to formulate a text and send it and have it back and forth, we could have had a conversation.
A full conversation that also contains the enunciations and the tonalities that go along with every word. So it's not just,
and at the end, you may still disagree, but, you know, to me, that the finger, you know, people's finger game is
It's true. It's true.
You know, and I'm not going to sit there, you know, when I went through the phenomena of social media, you know, and it was just like, it was never anything that was like degrading or crazy, but it was just like, did I have to send something? You know, did I have to?
It's so interesting as you say that, because that's kind of part of this interesting phenomenon, because for you, you would have been the generation right outside of social media. You were already of college age, way before, not way before, but right before.
No, gift. I grew up on this. That was the fun. What I mean, not saying anything. I don't even mean on social issues. I mean, like, someone put something up about sports, and I was just like, I didn't have to. You know, it was like,
there's no inclination to do it. It's why.
Yeah, I was like, why? You know, it wasn't about. You know, it was like, I'm not even talking about big stuff. I'm talking about like, why? Like, why did I?
No, and it like I said, it goes back to that interesting way of communicating, because even for us, social media came up with us from that early high school, that late high school, with MySpace, going into being in college at the early stages of Facebook when it was just college tech. So there's that incline to have to be part of the conversation some way, which had to be kind of rolled back a little bit, because it's like, wait, what conversations are we having? And to your point, like, what energy are you kind of putting into each of these situations? Why can we not just do a phone call, or we can more direct contact in this public forum that is occurring?
You know, some of the conversations I have with young people, it's just like, they'll reach out, and even I was like, I'm not saying you're wrong, but I would say, like, why did you put that much energy to it? And they'll say blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay. And then a lot of times they'll think about it, and I would ask, like, what was your, you know, what was intent versus impact, you know,
right.
or one of the things I always say is, like, you're entitled to all the feelings in the world, but be mindful of what you put out there in the universe, you know. And at the end, if you feel what you did was the right thing and you were willing to live by whatever choice that you made,
right, then that's
you. And as long as your choice didn't really impact others, then I'm still gonna rock with you. Like I just okay now, you know, it's when people put things out and they throw other people under the bus, and then you know it's just you know it becomes.
It goes back to that thing of, or what are we actually doing this for? Like, is this to actually come to a solution, or are we just trying to get things out? Because
then to tie it around, I see a lot of our young people are growing to that point where they are becoming, you know, we still have fringe, but a lot of our young people are becoming solution oriented. And I just think like it would just be amazing, you know, once we get past to this point where people are able to move around, you know, like one of the things I love, you know, is we've had events where people come for dinner and people get to meet each other. It's like, like the amount of conversations that have happened, and we're still limited in our engagement. You know,
right.
Like through all this, we've put ourselves out there to protest. You know, risk health. You know, to go out and speak on behalf of what we need to have happen for us. But I'm just want to know, like, what do these opportunities look like? You know, when things ease up, like how much are we willing to meet in person? How
right.
much are we willing to have these conversations? Because we're dealing with a lot where we're united, you know, because of our experiences and because of our color and just because of our history, right. and what has happened with us. But it's to me, it's crazy to be around people that I've known for years in the rugby community, but don't know their story.
And that's,
you know, and there's people who call each other's teammates and friends, but you really don't know
who the person is, the actual depth of the person.
And that would bring us together a lot more.
Agreed.
I think that would make a cause, worth fighting for. And I'm not saying you got to tell your story to agree and find connections, but when you're able to listen,
yeah,
like it's like being able to, like I've facilitated restorative circles, and you hear kids tell stories, and you get the chills. So you just feel the energy of when you create that space to feel comfortable enough, you know, to speak your truth. It's just that's just what it is, and combine it, you know, with, you know, there is a fitness element to it. But I'm also talking to you while you're doing that, like the engagement, the conversation. You know, how did you feel about it? You know, why is it? You know, a big part of it is we're out in the park. You know, we're out in the park just running stairs. You know, it's kind of like playground basketball when you're shooting free throws after practice. You know, you leave AAU, you leave the gym, you go to your neighborhood, and you know, in the rain, you practice in your layups. And so that's kind of the feel that I wanted to create with M.A.D.E. You done with your Play Rugby USA practice? I'm going to go, meet Kimani and the rest of the guys in the park. We're going to run the stairs, and I'm going to get 50 passes to the left, 50 passes to the right. It's not really, you know, it's organized. We're working with what we have.
I love it. I love it. Yo, Kimani, man. Yo, where can people find you at, brother?
Oh, man. My Instagram handle is my Actions Defy Expectations. You know, I always tell people, it's like when, you know, if I do an interview, you know, you're not going to find like, oh, there's the magic words or the magic pill. It all comes through interaction.
Exactly.
And realizing how much time you're investing in each other. But you can primarily find me through that. If you DM me through that, you know, I'll always engage in conversation, and then, you know, we'll take it from there. We'll grow from there. I'm as Kimani Davis on Facebook. I'm actually pretty soon, I'm revamping the M.A.D.E page to launch on Facebook again soon. And, you know, there's going to be activism. There's going to be consulting. You know, I'm working with Hunter, like I said, down in Philly. We're looking to put together a U23 team out of North Philly. Just because we don't, you know, the bag is out, you know, it was a secret, but it's just like that community has embraced the sport and, you know, not necessarily wanting to pick it apart and have it go everywhere. If these kids want to work together and grow together, you know, we want to get parents behind it. We want to get mothers. We want to get local, you know, community organizations behind it. And I think, like, in order for the sport to really take off in our communities, we need to get the communities behind it.
Amen.
You know? And I think it's possible. You know, if growing up playing sports, I always tell people, hey, nothing's more powerful than the black mom. You get a group of black mothers supporting the sport, and they realize that it's good for their kids, and it's strong, and it's positive.
Create the value prop.
And the reason why I don't mind sharing, this, it's not a secret. It's not because not everyone is built for it. Like, you can go and try to do it, but, our mothers are going to look at you and be like, something about you ain't right. And that trust isn't going to be there. But like I said, Instagram, Kimani Davis on Facebook, I'm always open for conversation.
Dude, man, I love this. This has been a lot of gems being dropped here, and we're gonna do this again. I just want to let you know this. We're doing this again on the update. So just don't even fool yourself to think, okay, we got the podcast in.
No. It's one of those things where it's a community. You know what I'm saying? It's just one of these things where it's one of those things where I've been pushed to not necessarily, you doing it at a level that I really appreciate. And it's just like, I'm being, I'm really deep diving into doing it myself. And you would definitely be one of the first. There will be, will just be, I think it's a need for it.
I agree.
And we just need certain people constantly present.
Look, you like we were talking about in the interactions with these kids that interacted with you early in their rugby careers and meeting with you. You never know what resonates as a result whenever you're able to have that, maybe not direct conversation, but even indirectly, it's an engagement in and of itself.
Yeah.
Man.
So yeah, man, I appreciate you, man. I'm excited because I don't even think we hit during this whole. I don't even think we've hit the bottom of the mountain. I think we're still on the trail before we start to climb the mountain. I mean, there's a lot of activity, that's happening, and there's a lot of things that I want to chime in on, and I hear what people are saying, but I'm watching because I'm watching our young people. I'm watching, like, and I know we gotta go. But I want to say this to our young people. Trust that if you're expecting to hear from certain programs or certain people to be present, I think we're actually, like, I'm enjoying watching the young people work. I'm enjoying the because, like, this is what I wake up in the morning to do. This is what I look to inspire, and to sit there and see young people reach out, for me to be able to have conversations, with Oliver and be able to have conversations with Jatavia. I said to her on a Zoom, you don't even realize, like, for a black man in his 40s to sit down and engage in such positive relationship with an 18-year-old woman, black woman, I'm sure it exists, but it's never spoken about.
Right.
And these, we need to be okay with these moments. And it's not in a way where I'm telling them what to do. I hear you. I want to hear you.
It's a mutual listening of it's a mutual sharing of information on both sides. It might be on your part imparting an experience, but on their part giving you a perception and a concept as well, and you guys are able to figure this out, but it just widens that breadth of knowledge and understanding and depth. No, I 100% understand that.
And if you notice, here's the funny part, and this is what I love about it. We talked about rugby,
right?
But we didn't talk about a lot of rugby, and this is what but it ties
exactly.
And and these are the standard regular conversations that I think need to happen, and we need to facilitate and create the space for it to happen. Once we, it's a lot of stuff that we have to get through, but especially within our communities or the people who we're close to, these are the conversations, the teammates that you do feel comfortable with, like a lot of teammates and people who I grew up who aren't people of color, where I'm having these conversations, and it's kind of reinforcing at times, okay, this is why you've been such an impact in my life. You know, to be able to go up and sit with my boy John for 2 hours and just we talked about the world, but the way that we spoke about it was in a way, it was just like, wow, we formed a legitimate bond and brotherhood with the friends, and our school did a really good job of weeding out the people who didn't belong. Like, and when I mean didn't belong, I don't mean like those. We had people for a liberal school who were homophobic, who were, you know, so that like this is not for you. Like what we're creating here.
It's and what now we have a different element that we can be able to now to work it in. It's not. It's much different. It's more. I don't want to say open, but it's a more aware environment. Maybe that's the best word.
Yeah, and a lot of people, like I said, people have to be prepared to hear a lot of things that they don't want to hear.
Right.
You know, a lot of people, you know, a lot of times, like I said, even as an educator, I had to go through a phase where I had to let go a lot of assumptions about young people and get them to, you know, sometimes you over-identify with who they are. And, you know, I was a young black kid once, but different era, different circumstance, different borough, different family dynamic. So that's when, you know, in terms of race, it's even happening with clubs like, oh, I thought we were good. Or I thought we were inclusive. Or I thought we welcomed everybody. Or I thought, and it was just like, nah, a lot of times people just didn't speak up. You know, and they were, you know, or a lot of times people were waiting, you know, to feel safe. Like I know a lot of people that didn't speak up, and it was just like, but I love the sport, and so I'm going to tolerate it because I love the sport. No, like that's hard to swallow.
Yeah. No, yeah, but it's these open truth, and you know, even though we didn't talk about it a little bit on this one, but you know, it goes back to, I always will say, it goes back to the history. What you see from the history kind of tells you what happens now, and just even within the sport itself. But it also lets you know how much of a responsibility that you have to do these actions, to have these uncomfortable conversations, to open up these points, to break some of this glass ceiling that people have gotten comfortable with under the guise of, hey, this is just rugby. It's like, no, if this is what you want it to be, you really want it to be this community, this lifestyle that you're promoting, whether it's from the fun and entertaining and casual social to in-depth and meaningful and inclusive, you have to be able to have these conversations. So everything on all the sides get to be honest, get to be genuine, get to be consistent, get to be, you know, free.
And that's why, without it being so preachy, that goes back to the whole concept of restorative circle.
Right.
Everyone has a stake. And everyone has a stake in the community.
Exactly. Bruh. I love this. Look, we're going to continue this on to the next one, all right?
Thank you for having me.
Yo, I want to thank Kimani so much for this. This was super meaningful, extremely loved in being able to get to know what he's about and what he's trying to bring to the table. Guys, definitely check him out on social media. And thank you so much, Kimani, for just giving us your story and letting us know, and letting me being able to know and get to know more about you, even past what we had even talked about off camera and whatnot. So I hope you guys truly enjoyed it. Please go and check out some of our other episodes. Last week we had Matt Upton with Jesuit Dallas High School. The week before that, we had the pleasure of having Derek Lipscomb coming through. Even before that, Pat Evans of Front Office Sports. We've had Nia Tapper with USA Rugby. We've had Phil Thiel. We have had some great guys, James Brunson of the North Philly Nomads. If you guys haven't checked out the movie The Nomads, it's what it's based on. We got Adam Gray Hayward from the movie Play On. We have had Kyle and Tiana Granby for R.O.O.T.S Rugby. Like, we've had some great guys. Rashad Lipford with North Carolina A&T. Kelly Smith with American Rugby Pro Training Center. We are building up a collection of history and amazing people that is just something to be proud of, something to take into consideration. And I hope you guys really just take the time and listen. So thank you guys so much for being here, for allowing me to be a part of this, for allowing me to come to your guys' ears each week. And I hope you guys stay happy. I hope you guys stay healthy. And considering everything that's been going on, please let it be known, you guys are highly favored. All right, you are worth it. You matter, and all that. Don't let anybody steal your happiness. You guys take care. Talk to you next time. Cheers.